What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Waters. Welcome to nolifetilmetal. Going to be doing a requested video today. Since I can't do the top videos with Trog at the moment, due to the whole COVID situation and not being able to travel in and out of state. He and I live in different states, and we usually visit each other 3-4 times a year, but we haven't been able to do that thanks to this wonderful COVID situation. So instead of doing that, I did a top 40 thrash metal albums. Now, someone requested, actually several people requested, can I do one for like pop metal? People were calling it hair metal, and frankly, I hate the term hair metal. Everybody had hair, big long hair in the 80s. Metallica had long hair. Doesn't make them hair metal. The Who had long hair, big hair. Remember Roger Daltrey's huge mound of hair? Doesn't make them hair metal. So hair metal is a stupid term. So I'm going to stick to pop metal or glam metal or sleaze metal or whatever you want to call it. It's just that style of music that existed in the early 80s and ran through the 90s, which most of this stuff is 80s to early 90s that I'm going to be showing. And it does run the gamut. There's some great stuff in here. A lot of this stuff, frankly, I would just consider metal, and some of it I would just consider hard rock. But people generally consider all this stuff, you know, pop metal or hair metal or whatever you want to call it. And, I'm going to start right off with one that's probably a little less known to most people, but this is Circus of Power. Has a bit of a 90s vibe to it. It was recorded in 1991 or something like that, 2, 3, somewhere in there. And yeah, but it still has that kind of, the big hooks, the big sound, the big drums, you know, everything you wanted from that kind of, even the look kind of, you know, they kind of had that look, which I actually like the look. I know a lot of people like to make fun of it. They hate the poodle puff, you know, pink hairdos and whatnot. I never minded it. You know, it was never my thing necessarily, because I was more, you know, always more into the, I don't know, the straightforward rocker look. I was always a thrasher and whatnot. But I kind of respected it because I thought it was, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? It was it was bigger than life, larger than life. It was showmanship, you know. They got up on stage and they wore whatever, like band like Striper, they wore their Bumblebee suits, but make fun of them all you want to, but the fact is they put on a performance, they put on a show. They got up there, they didn't get up there in their jeans and sneakers. They wanted to be bigger than life. They wanted to put on a performance, and I really respected that about a lot of these bands. And Circus of Power is, you know, no different in that respect. They had look, they had the sound, great bands. Didn't do a whole lot of people, not a whole lot of people know who these guys are, but they were on a big label. They were on RCA, distributed by BMG, so I mean they had a, you know, big label. I just think they were a little late in the game. If I'm not mistaken, it was like early 90s. I can't see the date on this thing, but yeah, Circus of Power. So the next one, I struggled which album to pick by this band because I love all 3 of their first albums. Saw these band live on their first tour at a small club in Albuquerque, and this is Dangerous Toys. This is their 3rd album, Piss, which is the one I ultimately went with. It's the heaviest of the bunch. They were a big label band. Many people were saying they were Guns N' Roses wannabes. Not really, man. They had much more of a southern vibe going on to them. They were a little heavier than Guns N' Roses. They had more of a, I don't know, especially on Piss. They were pissed. They were angry. They were angry about what? They were angry about the fact that, you know, they were a big label band and they weren't getting the promotion that they thought they deserved, and they weren't getting the spotlight that they were really pushing and hoping for. They did really well on their first tour. I mean, when I saw them at the small club in Albuquerque, the place was packed, and it made me a fan. I really only vaguely knew who they were when their first album came out. Saw them at that club, and instantly they were just awesome. Became a fan and went out and bought that first album, and I bought all of them after that. I bought all 4 studio albums, even though the artist formerly known as Dangerous Toys is kind of a wretched album. But yeah, Pissed, great album. If you're more into straightforward metal and not really into the whole, you know, pop metal thing, then Pissed is probably a little closer to that vibe, where the band was not catering to the commercial crowd so much as they were just wanting to do what they wanted to do, and they did it very well. Yeah, great album from them. This is actually a recent 2017 vinyl reissue. I don't think it was ever put out on vinyl originally back in when it came out in early 90s, I believe that was. And I did grab the first album too, because like I said, this is what made me a fan of this band. They don't really have the you know, the pop metal look. they look more like a metal band, you know. I mean, you've got a guy wearing a death shirt, bullet belts, you know. So that, like I said, they never fell totally into the whole pop metal thing. They're more of a, I don't know, they just had their own vibe going on, if in my opinion. This next band's definitely not pop metal. Now, people call them that. They had the look. Some people call them glam metal. Again, they weren't really any of those things, in my opinion. This is Twisted Sister's first album, Under the Blade. I love this band. They were a local band growing up. I have a Twisted Sister collection video up if anybody cares to look at it. I mean, I got into this band very early. I bought their 7-inch singles as new releases. They were playing clubs in my area. We all loved them. When I was a kid, I couldn't get into the clubs, so one show I sat behind the club and listened to the booming music. I wasn't much, you know, all I could hear was booming, but I didn't care. I was still there to hear Twisted Sister. Regardless, this is just straightforward metal. There really isn't anything poppy about, especially this particular album, and even the follow-up, You Can't Stop Rock and Roll. There's nothing poppy about it. Yeah, I understand that, you know, as they went on, they got a little more poppier with, you know, I Wanna Rock and those kind of songs, but with this album, this is fast, speedy. Some of these songs, What You Don't Know, Run For Your Life, Sin After Sin, Tear It Loose. These songs are Shoot 'Em Down. They're all just super fast. They're heavy metal, produced by Pete Way of UFO fame. It's just straightforward metal, in my opinion. And that's what I called them back in the day. We never called them anything but heavy metal. Twisted Sister were a heavy metal band. When I was in high school, and then, you know, 1983, I was wearing I had a pink shirt, just like this one with no sleeves, a pink shirt with the Twisted Sister logo on it, and a Knife in the Back logo on the back, because I was just a huge fan of these guys in high school back then. So, and Destroyer is just brutally heavy, and that's a slower, almost doomy song, but great stuff. Yeah, like I said, I included them. I wouldn't have, if I was doing this and just and really wanted to show pop metal, I wouldn't include that Twisted Sister album, because there really isn't anything poppy about it. But just because they generally get included in these kind of lists, I put them in here. Next up, Skid Row. Everybody knows who this one is. Everybody knows this album. This is their first album. I don't have the second album on vinyl because I probably would have chose that one. I think, you know, that album's a little heavier, a little more up my alley. I do like this one too. I think Sebastian Bach's got a great voice. There's some great songs on here. Yeah, it's got the stuff that everybody knows on here. It's Youth Gone Wild. Regardless of what you think of pop metal, it's still a great song. And of course, it's got the 18 in Life, I think was the other big one on here. Big Guns was kind of an underrated minor hit as well. But yeah, what are you going to do? Sebastian Bach, very well-known guitar player. Dave the Snake Sabo. These guys were hugely popular in the late 80s and into the 90s, and it's unfortunate that they, the band and Sebastian can't pull it together and, you know, and do something together, because I think they probably would, you know, be a stadium band all on their own, but apart, you know, people just aren't as interested in. It's just like Judas Priest without Halford, or Aerosmith without Tyler. You know, it's just the voice and the name go with the band, so people just aren't as interested. Regardless, high quality Skid Row, good stuff. This next one is probably I think the only newer release I have in here, but it's by an older band. This is Bachelor of the Blues by Helix. I think this is a phenomenal album. If this album had come out in 1985, 1986, 87, even earlier than that, I can't imagine this thing wouldn't have been huge. It's just got such great hooks, great guitar playing. Just everything about this album is fantastic. Even Jesus Wasn't Loved in His Hometown is just, I mean, it's got a massive hook. My favorite song in here, however, is Metal at Midnight. He wants metal at midnight. It's just a very hooky song. Excuse me, the whole album really is. There's not a bad song on here. Some people confuse this thinking it was Helix doing a blues record. There's nothing bluesy about this record. Bastard of the Blues. You know, rock and roll is the bastard of the blues, and that's what you're getting here. Heavy rock and roll from Helix from Canada. Great album from them. This is a 2018 pressing, but I believe this album came out a couple years before that. I know this band has the look, that glam metal look. But I love this album. I walked into a store in Albuquerque, New Mexico when I first moved out here in like 1989, 1990. I think this came out in early 1990. But I think it might have been even like 89. And the guy behind the counter saw that I was a metalhead, and he goes, "Hey, check this out." You know, it was a Christian bookstore that I went into, and of course I walked in and with the long hair and looking like a metalhead. I don't care. I was, you know, what people think about the way I look. But the clerk handed me a free cassette of Holy Soldier. It was a black and white single, and it had the song not Surrender. That wasn't. I'm not thinking that's the wrong song here. Hang on. It's Stranger, Tear Down the Walls. What a great song, man. It made me an instant fan. I played that single in my beat-up Toyota that I had back then over and over and over again. I couldn't wait for the album to come out, and when the album finally did come out, bought it. Been a fan ever since. Stephen Patrick, man, what a set of pipes the guy has. Twin guitar attack. This is very much influenced by like the likes of Iron Maiden and Judas Priest as far as that twin guitar attack, but very much a commercial sound. Huge hooks, like I said. David Zafiro of Blood Good fame did the production on this thing. This is actually a recent reissue on Rocks Records, and I have to have the promo crap in here as well, as a promo photo and a sticker. But yeah, very good. Check out, if you go on YouTube and check out the song Tear Down the Walls, and if that song doesn't do it for you, if you're a metal fan, if you're a fan of straightforward metal and that song doesn't do it for you, well then you're probably not going to like this album. But if it does, do check this album out, because this band is phenomenal. Alright, this next one everybody knows. It's huge. Second album from this band. I know a lot of people are going to be like, a bunch of posers in that band. I don't care what you think. I like the album. This is Cherry Pie by Warrant. Okay, now the song, Cherry Pie, I'm kind of, it's one of those songs I never really got into. It's just a bit over-the-top fluff for me, kind of like Def Leppard's Pour Some Sugar on Me. It's just, I find that to be a wretched song. And Cherry Pie, not even a fan of that one either. But a song like Uncle Tom's Cabin, brilliant song. Heavy, great stuff, great riffs, great vocals. It's kind of a shame they got kind of, the Cherry Pie thing kind of pushed Warrant into, everybody kind of thinks, well, they kind of fit in there with like Poison and Bon Jovi, and maybe they do a little bit, but they actually had they were much more rockin' than that. They were much more genuine rock and roll than that to me. They weren't just about that one song, even though people pigeonholed them into that one song. Anyhow, Warrant, this one was kind of late too, 1990 I think this came out. But people think in the 90s, they think that kind of metal was dead, but it really didn't die or go underground until like maybe 93, 94, even 95. There's still some great stuff coming out in the early 90s. This next one, I don't know if people know it or not. It was on Enigma Records, but this is another one where the vocalists on this thing are just outstanding. This is XYZ. Brilliant melody, not super heavy, but man, they just have the hooks. Great guitar solos. I just can't say enough about the vocals. I'm trying to remember his name. Terry. I can't remember his last name. Anyhow, the singer from this band is just fantastic. But this just everything about this is great. It's just really hooky, heavy stuff. Very good album if you're into melodic heavy metal, melodic hard rock. This is the tops for me. One of my personal favorites. And that's what this list is, by the way. This is not really it, with the exception of maybe the top 5 that I put in order here. The rest of these are just favorites of mine from this genre that people ask me about. I could decide between 2 of them on this one, so I'm just going to show both. So this is the first album from Guardian. This is First Watch, and this LA band. This album came out in 1989. It came out on Enigma Records in the United States, Roadrunner Records in the UK. This is actually a Roadrunner copy. But this band had been around for quite a while before this. They had tons of demos out. They were on the California Metal compilation, among others. But when they were signed to Enigma Records, I think Oz Fox of Striper fame actually produced this record, and they were just pushed rigorously to hone their sound and improve their skill. And Tony Palacios, man, that guy is just a shredder. He is absolutely one of my favorite guitar players. He's a very underrated guitar player. After Guardian kind of went their own way and stopped touring every year, Tony Palacio was a very wanted studio guitarist, and also he went on tour with a lot of other bands just as a guitar player in the background. So but this album is very much melodic heavy metal. I don't really see it as pop metal much, even though they have that look. I think the next album, which I've got right here, was more into that vein, but this album is just fantastic. This album is probably more known. This is Fire and Love, their second album. This is the first to feature their new vocalist, Jamie Rowe, who had previously been in a band called Tempest, but this was his debut with Guardian, and a sound change here, much more commercial, a little more bluesy going on here, lining up more like with the band like Cinderella or I don't know, I almost want to even say Bon Jovi at times, but I can't stand Bon Jovi, so I hate saying that, but yeah, it kind of has more of a bluesier vibe. Jamie Rowe has more of a grittier voice, whereas what's his name? The vocalist Paul Crawley, I think his name was on this one. Looking for his name, I don't see it on the back, but I think it's Paul Crawley. He was more of a Rob Halford's Ryan James Dio style singer, whereas Jamie Rowe's got more of a gravelly, gritty voice, a little bit more bluesy. I don't know. Regardless, it's a good album. Heavy riffs. There are other, obligatory ballads on here. Never Say Goodbye, but songs like Power of Love, Send a Message, Forever and a Day, Forever and a Day, my heart will always stay. Yeah. Great stuff. I really enjoy this record. And I'm sure there's going to be people who are watching this one who watch my videos and like, dude, I thought you were into thrash and death metal. What are you listening to that garbage for? Man, I like a lot of different stuff. I like thrash and I like death metal, but I like pop metal and I like 70s hard rock and I like progressive rock and I even like stuff like Phil Collins, Yeah, really. I just like what I like. So this one I just got in the mail, but I've had this CD for decades and absolutely love it. I'm glad it finally got released on vinyl. This is Bangalore Choir on Target. David Reese, formerly of Accept, who later sang with an even heavier band called Circle of Silence, but this album is phenomenal. Huge hooks. I believe actually Bon Jovi actually had a writing credit on here, as well as the singer from Autograph. Also had some writing credits on here, but yeah, a song like Angel in Black, had this album come out a few years before, it would have just smoked. I mean, people would have loved it, but the fact that it came out, and let's see if there's a year on here. 1992, it was just a little bit behind the curve, and that's all there is to it, man. 1992 was about the time that this style of metal was just, falling out of popularity, and other things were coming into popularity. So, shame, because it's a great album. It really is. It's produced by Max Norman. Max Norman is one of my favorite producers because he's done some great stuff with bands like Bangalore Choir, Megadeth, Dirty Looks, among many others that I really enjoy. So he's one of those producers that kind of gets the best out of the band, as opposed to bringing in like a bunch of studio musicians to play for the band and getting a super clean, plastic production, which I can't stand. Think Def Leppard's fourth album, that where it's very sterile production. This is more of a rock and roll production. It's got more grit and grind, and it's just great heavy rock. Very good stuff from the band. And of course, like I said, they have the look. So this is a brand new reissue that just came out this year. So Bangalore Choir on Target. There's another band on a major label that isn't very well known. Kind of a tragic story with what happened to this band. And I grabbed two of them because I didn't want to really show EPs in this video, but I'm going to show a couple EPs along with the album. So, but this is Mass. This is their third full-length album. Voices in the Night came out in 1989, produced by Michael Sweet of Stryper. This band had been around since the very early 80s. They signed a huge label contract in 1982, produced an album with Tom Allom, from who had produced Judas Priest's producer. He produced Screaming for Vengeance in the same year as he produced Mass's first album. And Mass. They recorded the album. They were with a big label, A&M Records, and apparently Mass's manager was just a total. Can't think of a nice way to say prick, but that's pretty much what he was. And got into a fight with the label. The label told the band to lose the manager, or they weren't putting the album out. So they went into litigation over getting rid of the manager. It took them 2 years to get out of it. By that time, A&M shelved the record, and finally Mass had to put something else on their own. They put an EP out. Was it 1984? I think finally. And by that time, they had lost momentum, and their style of straightforward metal wasn't in vogue anymore. But the EP sold great. They sold I can't remember what it was, 10,000 copies of their own EP, on their own. Soon after, they signed with RCA Records. They put out their New Birth album, and a few years later, they signed to Enigma Records, and with the help of Michael Sweet, they put out this album. This is definitely their most commercial sounding album. Very much has that Stryperish sound, where it's that overdriven guitar, that buzzsaw sounding guitars, but the very high, clean, soaring vocals of Louis St. August, one of my favorite vocalists. Just a great band. But this is my favorite. I love this album. This is their EP. This is Take You Home. Every song on this is brilliant. 6 songs on here. If you at all want to check out this band, Mass, check out the song Pedal to the Metal or Holy One on YouTube. And if you're a fan of straightforward melodic heavy metal, I can't believe you wouldn't enjoy this album. This album was actually put out on, this was on Medusa Records back in, what, 88 or so, 87, somewhere in that area. Yeah, great stuff, both albums. And a lot of people think they're a Christian band, I guess because of the Michael Sweet having worked with them from Stryper, and also because of their name being Mass. But they're from Boston, Massachusetts, so that's where their name comes from, the state of Massachusetts. They are not a Christian band. They do not sing, I mean, I'm not saying, I don't know personally what they believe in, but their lyrics aren't necessarily, you know, Christian based. So, next up, first solo album from a guy who got his, who became famous in Kiss, but this is Vinnie Vincent, and I grabbed both albums because I couldn't decide between them. I love them both equally. This stuff is over the top. The guitar solos are fast. They're insanely, they're just insane. It's great stuff. A couple of the songs in the first album were actually written for what would have been the follow-up to Lick It Up, but it didn't make it on Lick It Up. Soaring vocals, 2 different vocalists. So you've got Robert Fleischman on one, I believe is his name, and then on this one was the Slaughter singer, Mark Slaughter, and that's Mark's there. And then Dana Strum, who is just a beast on the bass and a great showman on stage. The guy is he's just a beast on stage. I've seen Slaughter live, I've seen Vinnie Vincent Invasion live, and he's just always a great performer. But yeah, very good stuff. Like I said, huge hooks, great guitar solos. If you're into flash guitar solos, man, that you get on both these albums. And then of course you get the the drumming of Bobby Rock. People know who Bobby Rock is. He was in a lot of famous bands, but that's him right there in the bleached, torn jeans with his hairy chest hanging out. I especially like this picture of him here, where he's got what looks to me like he's got leopard skin pants on, but the rest of it's painted up his arm and up his back. pretty. When you're talking about over the top, that's over the top. But I think it's cool because it was showmanship. You know what I mean? It was there. They committed to it, man. They got up on that stage and they put on a show. So, this next band is from Europe. Again, I could have grabbed several albums from this band. I just happened to grab this one because it's one of my favorites. But this is Victory. Herman Frank of Accept fame is on this album. And then Peter Norm was the vocalist on this album. They've had several different vocalists, but it's just a fantastic album. Melodic. Again, I call it melodic heavy metal. Some people call it pop metal. Whatever you want to call it. It's just very well done. Good production. Yeah, just nothing I don't like about it. So not much more to say about it. Just great band featuring Herman Frank of Accept fame. Alright, this next band is definitely one of the LA glamsters that many call one of the, the sleaze rock bands, but this is Faster Pussycat. I was working at a store in New York called Cavage's Records when this came out, and a promo copy of this came into play. I played it over the store PA, and the owner of the store didn't really like heavy metal, but she wasn't there that day, so I played the record and liked it. But I was told not to play it ever again, and as a matter of fact, just take it home with you. Fine with me. They didn't want it, so I took it home. It came with a promotional photo, and I kept that album forever. And just a great band, huge hooks. Again, got the kind of the raspy voice, kind of in the vein of like a Cinderella or a Dangerous Toys as far as vocal style goes. With that kind of gravelly, raspy voice. A bit bluesy here and there, but definitely not blues rock. It has more of a swing to it, more of a, I don't want to really call them like Guns N' Roses, but they do kind of have a similarity in Guns N' Roses in some ways. But there's just not a bad song on here. Of course, Bathroom Wall was one of their huge hits off this album. If you don't know that song, then you probably just don't know this genre of music at all. But there's some other great stuff on here. I mean, Don't Change That Song. Don't change that song. It's my favorite record. It's just a great song to start off with. No Room for Motion, Cat House, Babylon. Babylon's a great song. Smash Alley, Shooting You Down. The City Has No. This whole album, every song just has a huge, big hook. And again, they had that look, kind of like Guns N' Roses did in the late '80s. But what can I say? I like it. All right, moving back to LA, but this time we're going to early '80s. And again, I'm going to show the EP and the full-length record. But this is Rat. Once again, I never considered these guys when this album came out. I bought this as a new release. It was just metal. I mean, this Rat shared a compilation, the Metal Massacre on Metal Blade Records. Rat was on there next to Metallica and Seared Ungle and all those kind of bands. So to me, it was just metal. It wasn't until many years later that when thrash metal and glam metal kind of had this big clash where if you were a thrash metaler, you couldn't listen to glam metal because glam metal was poser metal and all that kind of bull crap, that people started really breaking apart and saying this is this and this is this. To me, it was just all metal, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed Metallica in 1983 when this came out, I believe it was, and I enjoyed Rat in 1983 when this came out. So this EP had 5 songs, including a cover. It's actually a cover of a cover. So they do a cover of Walking the Dog, which I think was Rufus Thomas wrote the song originally. But their Rat's version is very similar to Aerosmith's sound and their version of it. And you could just tell Rat kind of had a huge Aerosmith influence in their sound. Matter of fact, a lot of these bands, that Faster Pussycat I showed earlier, man, you could hear a ton of Aerosmith vibe going on in that kind of swagger that Steven Tyler had on stage. You can kind of hear that in their music and see that in their visuals, and the same thing with Rat. So anyhow, the EP, and then of course the follow-up, Out of the Cellar, which had a huge song on here, had a couple of songs on here, but Lack of Communication was pretty well known. But Round and Round was the one that was on MTV continually, with the band playing in the attic and falling through, and the guitar solo on the dinner table, and yeah. I don't know if anybody's seen it recently. It's freaking hilarious. But there's a commercial for an insurance company, and it says, we have a rat problem, and you go up in their cellar, and you go up to the cellar, and it's Rat modern day playing up in their cellar. It's freaking hilarious. But great album, great band. Again, just straightforward metal. Very much of it, like I said, an Aerosmith vibe, especially in the vocals. You hear that kind of gravelly, raspy Steven Tyler thing going on. Next album, again, I don't know if I'd ever consider this glam metal, but a lot of people do, so I'm including it. These guys are shock rockers back in the day. This is W.A.S.P debut, full-length debut. They had actually the F Like a Beast album that came out before this, and I got onto W.A.S.P early on. I believe it was I don't remember, G-Rock or I don't know, one of those radio programs back in the day, Metal Shop. It was Metal Shop on WMMR that would play W.A.S.P all the time. So kind of catch on to them rather early just because of hearing that. But there's just not a bad song on there. Again, the sound, yeah, they had the look. They were throwing raw meat at people. Blackie Lawless had the whole, I don't know, what do you call it, what he was doing? It looked like almost like a male witch. But they had this wicked stage show that was it was like the Evil Kiss. Not unlike what you see on the cover right here. This wicked stage show, and they were considered shock rock, and the PMRC was all over these guys because of their lyrics and their look and the whole shenanigans that they had going on. But the song, just hooky, straightforward, heavy metal, or pop metal if you want to call it that. Every song on here, I wanna be somebody too. Just every song on here is just good. Love Machine, L-O-V-E, all I need is every song on here is just a huge hook. The Flame, B.A.D., School Days, Hellion, Sleeping in the Fire, on your Knees, Tormentor, and The Torture Never Stops. Fantastic album. I could have grabbed the next album too, as I found it equally as good, but still a W.A.S.P fan. I like even the stuff they're putting out now. So W.A.S.P. Alright, next album, another band from California. They had 2 albums under the name Yesterday and Today, and then they had 3 albums that most people consider their, pivotal albums, but I could have picked any of those 3 because all of them are great, but I went with Mean Streak because the album made me a fan of the band, and it was the song Mean Streak that actually I heard, again, I believe it was on WMMR, W.A.S.P in Philadelphia, one of those 2 stations, when they used to have Metal Shop, and they would play Mean Streak on there, and that's a song that just made me a fan of YNT. And of course from there I went back and started listening to their other stuff, and their first 2 albums more of a 70s vibe, but this is definitely straightforward 80s melodic heavy metal. So Not a bad song on here. Straight to the Heart, Lonely Side of Town, Midnight in Tokyo is a huge hook in it. Breaking Away, Hang 'em High, Take You to the Limit, Sentimental Fool, and Down and Dirty. These guys are still out there touring and doing things. Unfortunately, it's only Dave Meniketti left in the band. I believe Phil Kennemore and Leonard Hayes have both passed away. This album produced by Chris Tsangarides, who you may know, who's produced bands like Thin Lizzy, and he's actually pretty well known recently because he was in the Anvil documentary and produced the Anvil record that was in that documentary. So, all right, next up, this was a self-released album from this band, who became one of the biggest bands on the planet and still are to this day. For me, their first two albums are where it's at. After that, I can, there's some songs here and there I like, but this is Motley Crue. This is their first self-released album on their own label, Too Fast for Love. This is power pop mixed with heavy metal. That's exactly what this is. Again, when this came out, though, to me and all my metal friends that I hung out with in the New Jersey crowd, this was just metal. You know what I mean? This again was probably what, 81 when this came out, early 80s. So it just got spun over and over and over and over again. There's a couple different pressings of this early version. This is actually the Leather Records on the band's self-label. This is probably a second or third pressing. You can tell because it's got the Motley Crue in red as opposed to it being all in black. But this was just the band pressing up their own records and just killing it. And then eventually got picked up by Elektra. Elektra Records remixed the album, took a song off for some reason. Was it Stick to Your Guns, I think? One of the songs they took off the record. And then they put it out, and they made the Motley Crue logo bigger and across the entire top. But, yeah, these guys, another one, had this huge stage show, I believe it was it Tommy Lee? No, I think maybe it was Nikki Sixx, one of those guys. Was it Nikki Sixx? I think Nikki Sixx used to light his boots on fire on stage. They just had this outrageously cool stage show going on back then. I love the whole album, though. Huge hooks, like I said. Live Wire, everybody knows Live Wire. Public Enemy, Take Me to the Top. Take Me to the Top. And just that riff, yeah. Merry Go Round and Round, Piece of Your Action, great song. Starry Eyes, Stick to Your Guns, Come On and Dance. The title track, Too Fast for Love, and On with the Show. Great record, Motley Crue. This next one, probably not as well known. I'm getting the itchy nose. Allergies. This band only released this one album and then broke up and went off into other multiple bands that actually had some success in other bands. But this is Rage of Angels. Again, to me, this was just straightforward, melodic heavy metal. Call it what you want. They had the look of a straightforward metal band, with the exception of the blonde guy. But I mean, they're all just wearing leather and denim. So huge hooks in this album. Unfortunately, they had some sort of issues, management issues, label issues. They ended up releasing this on two labels. It was REX and Regency Music at the same time. I don't know the whole story, but it just fell apart for whatever reason. The album has never been re-released officially. There's lots of bootlegs out there floating around, but it's never been re-released properly. And unfortunately, it looks like it may never happen, as the band just doesn't seem interested in letting any label do it for. So that's unfortunate. But yeah, great stuff. Well worth checking out if you're into straightforward melodic heavy metal. Check these guys out. There's lots of songs on YouTube. Reason to Rock, Hooked on a Good Thing, Somebody's Watching You, Are You Ready for the Thunder, Don't Give It Up. It's good stuff. Another band from LA. After Steeler broke up, Yngwie and Ron Keel went their separate ways, and Ron Keel formed Keel with two new shredders. He had Brian J. and Mark Ferrari on guitar, and there both of them are. And both those guys are complete shredders. But this is, again, pretty much straightforward metal, much in the same vein as that Steeler record that Yngwie played on. They did definitely go in a more commercial direction after this, with each record getting a little more cleaner and more cleanly produced, slicker production. But this album is pretty raw, pretty heavy, pretty rockin', straightforward metal in my opinion. Ron Keel, Thunder and Lightning, Lay Down the Law, Speed Demon. Speed Demon should have been a Steeler song. So Princess of Illusion, Born Ready, Metal Generation. Till Hell Freezes Over, Tonight You're Mine, Let's Spend Life Together. If you're a fan of that Steeler record and you've never listened to any Keel records, check this record out. Because if you're a fan of that Steeler record, chances are you'll probably like this Keel record too. It's very much in a similar vein. And Steeler were another band that were on that early Metal Massacre compilation too, with Metallica and Sears Ungle and some of those other bands. This next band's from Canada, probably not more well known, but this would have been about 1989, Angelica. This album features the guitar talents of Dennis Cameron, who is just a total, complete shredder. Great guitar player, but it also features two phenomenal vocalists. Most of the vocals are done by Rob Rock, who is known for his solo power metal stuff. He sang with Avantasia. He sang with most of the albums with Impala Terry. Rob Rock's just a powerhouse of a vocalist. But Ken Tamplin sings one of the songs on here too, and Ken Tamplin also does a lot of the background vocals and is the producer of this record. So this is Angelica. This is a recent reissue on Girder Music. I think this one came out in 2019. But yeah, originally came out in about 1989 or so, I believe it was. Might even been 88, somewhere in that area. Again, huge hooks, great vocals from Rob Rock, great guitar playing. Fantastic album if you're not familiar with it. Another ex-Kiss guy, Frehley's Comet. Could have pulled out any of the first two Frehley's Comet albums. Second album is definitely more commercial, has a way cleaner production and much more poppier sound. But I've always been a fan of this record. This album came out and I played it to death. I was in college living in New York at the time, probably drove my roommates nuts with this record. But yeah, Rock Soldiers, Breakout, these are classic songs. Breakout was a song that Ace had written for Kiss that didn't make it on the Kiss record while he was in the band, ended up making it onto this first Frehley's Comet record. Into the Night, Something Moved, We Got Your Rock, Love Me Right, Calling on You, Dolls, Strangers in a Strange Land, and the instrumental Fracture 2, Part 2 of the series that he started, the instrumental series that he started on his 1978 solo album. But yeah, very much fits into this style of music and very good record. Honestly, I could have included some of the Kiss records from the 80s in this style too, but I just decided to keep it to bands that were pretty much of this era. Another band from California, this is Dokken. This is their first album, still among my favorites from them. Could have gone with any of their first three records, but there's just something special about this one. Again, I think there's something about the rawness, the heaviness of that early records when it wasn't super produced yet, and they were still kind of, they were still kind of walking that fence saying we're a metal band, and they weren't kind of they weren't the MTV darlings yet. Everything from the look, which is just pure metal, to the sound on this one is just heavy metal to me. So, but you've got Break the Chains, which is still a very well-known Dokken song. In the Middle, Felony, I Can See You, Live to Rock, Rock to Live, Night Rider, Seven Thunders, Young Girls, Stick to Your Guns, and for whatever reason they put a live version of Paris is Burning on here rather than a studio version. But regardless, great. This is the first full-length record from Dokken, I believe. It's a bit convoluted. There's like a Don Dokken record that has some of these same songs on it, but for me, this is the one that made me a fan. This is the one that I'm still a fan of today. So, Breaking the Chains by Dokken. All right, one more, and then I'm going to get into my top 5 or 6. That might be 6 in my top 5. But again, I grabbed the first two albums from this band. This is Britny Fox, with Michael Kelly Smith being the main man behind the band here. Michael Kelly Smith being the guitar player, and this is very much in a similar style to Cinderella. Has that huge Aerosmith vibe to it, with the more commercial sounding 70s Aerosmith stuff. Definitely was an influence on a lot of these bands, and you can really hear that Steven Tyler strut in the music. And a lot of people would call this sleaze metal. I don't know. To me, it's just again, it's very commercial, much like Cinderella or even Dangerous Toys. I always liked the vocals too. A lot of people didn't like the vocals on this first two albums by what is the guy's name? It's Dizzy Dean Davidson. Yeah, Dizzy Dean Davidson. There he is, right there. And they ended up getting rid of him after these two albums, and their third album featured a new vocalist, which was also a great album. But Dizzy Dean went off and did his own thing and formed his own band as well. Another album I could have probably shown, but yeah, just good stuff. If you like Cinderella, chances are you probably like Britny Fox. It kind of has a similar vibe to especially this first album here. If you like the first Cinderella album, you're probably gonna like the first Britny Fox album. I mean, it's very much in a similar style. The little hype sticker on here from Metal Hammer says, Britny Fox tears away the shell and leaves us staring at a future Godzilla. Protect those buildings quick. Metal Hammer, 4 stars. And then Kerrang, a killer album and an equally fatal live attraction. 5K review in Kerrang. So, regardless of what people say about this kind of bands now, back then they were pretty highly lauded and and celebrated. So Brittany Fox. All right, now I'm gonna get into my top. Let's see if I have 5 here or 6. I'm gonna have 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My top 7. So these are kind of in somewhat of an order. From Canada, Killer Dwarfs, their second album, Stand Tall. This is an album that desperately needs a reissue. This is just a phenomenal album. Self-produced, I believe, on a small label, Grudge Records. But the song Stand Tall, I can't remember where it was I heard it first, but that song and the video that came with that song really just... The video is awesome. It's just it's a picture of a band goofingly making their own records, like literally making their own records, not recording the music, but like making the records themselves at a home. Like, just, it's ridiculous, but it's a lot of fun. If you could check out that video on YouTube, you'll really enjoy it. It's the Stand Tall, the title track on here, but the whole album is great. Again, very much a hooky. It's got a swing, it's got a swagger, it's got great vocals, it's got big hooks, it's got great guitar playing, and it's got a heavy rhythm section, and a great underrated drummer. All the band members in this band are last name are Dwarf. So you got Ronald Dwarf, you got Mike Dwarf, Russ Dwarf, and Daryl Dwarf on drums. Man, what a just a phenomenal drummer. Definitely one of the underrated drummers in the metal scene. I've actually said this band's name several times, comparing other bands to them, so it's no doubt that they're going to make it into my top 7 here. Cinderella Night Songs. I like all Cinderella's albums. I've seen them live like 5 or 6 times. They're phenomenal live. I met them once. Super nice guys. I mean, really down to earth, very cool guys. Won tickets off. I happened to be driving home from band practice one night, and I never listened to the radio. I'm always been a CD guy, so I plopped CD into my CD player. But I got in my car, and the radio was on, and they were talking about the Vinnie Vincent invasion, which I showed earlier. And they were asking if anybody knew who the bass player was that was in both Slaughter and Vinnie Vincent invasion. Of course, it was Danish Drum, so I immediately called this radio station, and they said the winner gets backstage passes to meet Slaughter, Cinderella, Dokken, and Poison. And the guys at Slaughter, very cool, very down to earth. Signed all my crap. I shoved the Vinnie Vincent invasion stuff in Mark Slaughter's hand to sign, and he just looked at me and goes, "Wow, you've been a fan for a long time." And I said, "Yeah, I have." And he signed it. And again, very nice guys. They didn't know me from Adam, but they were very friendly. Same with the guys from Cinderella. Very cool, very down to earth. The guys in Dokken, the 3 that I met were very nice. Don never bothered to come out to meet anybody, unfortunately. The guys in Poison couldn't be bothered at all. They never came out. Even none of them came out. So I was a little bit disappointed. More so for some of the people that I saw that were huge Poison fans, because I am not a huge Poison fan. I'm a way bigger fan of Cinderella than I am of Poison, so I was really glad to meet them. But I was disappointed for some of the people that were there that really wanted to meet Poison, that they never got to meet him because they never bothered to come out. Anyhow, Nitro, OFR, I'm fucking rageous. Man, the guy's voice is just otherworldly. So you've got this guy, over the top is how I describe this. This is over the top. Everything about this, from the guitar playing, which is Michelangelo, who you can see with the 4-neck guitar. I mean, just a complete and total shredder. I mean, you know, guys like Impolitary and Yngwie Malmsteen come to mind when I think of Michelangelo. I think about Battio is his full name, and Jim Gillette on this album. I mean, oh my goodness, he's just glass shattering high at times. I think it's what I like about it. It's just so over the top. It's ridiculous. Another one where it really was the video for the song that made me a fan of this band. So, I was at a friend's home. He had on local access TV, and they were just playing videos, you know, music videos, and they played the video for the song Freight Train. I'm like a freight train, like a freight train coming. Incredibly high vocals, and that guitar. I was just like, oh my gosh, this is insanity. Love this. I gotta go buy that, and of course I did. They ended up putting out 2 records. There's other stuff, you know, that they put out since then. That's, you know, nothing full length, just like a lot of outtakes and that kind of thing. But their 2 albums, love them both. I think the second album was never on vinyl, or at least I don't have it on vinyl, but it doesn't make a difference. I would have chose the first album anyway. Everything from the cover art to the band's crazy look. Again, you've got Bobby Rock, who I showed earlier with the Vinnie Vincent Invasion on drums. So great album. just over the top great. This album is the third album by this band. Again, I don't know that I would call this pop metal, glam metal, or anything of the sort, but this is Extreme 3. I like the first two albums, but there is just something about this phenomenal album. They've gone very much progressive on this album. I hear a lot of Queen influences on here. This is a really long record, but this is the album that made me an extreme fan. I heard the other stuff. I heard because they kind of got some popularity off of Ballad, which is Ballad slipped my name at the time. I've never been a huge guy on ballads, but it was songs like Warhead that pulled me in on this album. Rest in Peace, Color Me Blind, Our Father. It's just every song in here is great. Stop the world, I wanna get off. Every song on here great. So Extreme 3. Three sides to every story. My favorite Extreme record, and right now it is one of the few I have on vinyl. I don't have the first two on vinyl yet on my list. I'll get them eventually, hopefully. All right, we're getting down to our top three here. This band, actually, this is the second time I'm showing them, but I could not show this one. This is No Rest for the Wicked. Again, to me, this was just straightforward metal. When I got this album back in the day, it was, again, one of those albums I heard because of I can't remember if it was WMMR, W.A.S.P in Philadelphia, and they were playing the song Heavy Metal Love on this thing, and that song to this day is one of my favorite songs from Helix. But this is not a bad song on this record. Everything on here. Does a Fool Ever Fall in Love? Heavy Metal Love, Check Out the Love, No Rest for the Wicked, Dirty Dog. That's a song they play live still to this day. But yeah, this would have been, what, 1983 or so? Maybe 82, somewhere in that area. So just a great, straightforward heavy metal album from Canadians Helix. And the last two, probably no surprise to anybody who knows me. I'm a huge fan of this band, but this is Stryper. This is their first full-length album. Love the EP as much as this. I probably could have grabbed it as well. But this album has just been a part of my world since it first came out. I walked into a record store that I didn't know the people who were running it in New Jersey, and I was looking for some new metal, and I did not really know who this band was. And I asked the clerk, "You guys have anything new metal in?" And he goes, he walked over to and he handed me Stryper, and I was like, "Is it any good?" He goes, "Is it any good?" He says, "This is phenomenal." I said, "Well, what kind of stuff do you like?" He goes, "Man, I like everything from the Monkees to Metallica." I was like, "All right, I'll check it out." And I knew they were a Christian band. I mean, I was aware of that, but I just didn't know their music. And I hadn't bought the EP yet, so I brought the album home, and my goodness, this thing just rocked my world. There's songs on here, Soldiers Under Command and Surrender are just two of my absolute favorite Stryper songs. Heavy riffs. I mean, these are riffs that would rival, bands like Iron Maiden and Judas Priest. You can laugh all you want and say, those are posers, but no, these guys were heavily influenced by those kind of bands. You can hear it in the riffing, and a song like Surrender is just stupid heavy. It's been covered by several other metal bands over the years. Surrender has. Actually, Soldiers of Command. I've heard several covers of that. But Make Me Want to Sing, Together Forever, First Love, The Rocket Makes Me Roll, Reach Out, Waiting for a Love That's Real. And then the album ends with Battle Hymn of the Republic. And then there's a ballad on here. Again, I've told you I'm not a huge ballads guy, but this particular ballad was my wedding song. When my wife and I were getting married in 1989, and we were trying to pick a song, and our first dance together wedding song, I really wanted to do "Love Me Like a Reptile" by Motorhead, and she really wasn't into that. So I'm not kidding. I really campaigned for that. No, but she decided, her and I both liked Stryper, and she decided that she wanted to use "Together as One," and I was fine with that. So it ended up. Together as One was our first dance together, and it was our wedding song, so there you go. That one plays a very huge emotional part in my life. And finally, an independent release on Sticky Records. This was the second album, I believe, from Dirty Looks, with Danish vocalist Henrik Ostergaard. They were based in Pennsylvania at the time of this coming out. They ended up moving upstate to Rochester, New York, and siding with Atlantic Records and putting out a huge album called This Is In Your Face, Cool from the Wire, which I also love as much as this, but this is the album that introduced me to this band. This is the album that I fell in love with this band on. Again, very dirty sounding rock and roll. This is not super pristine production. This is very raw, heavy stuff. you know, you're not going to put this up next to Poison and confuse the two bands. You know, that it's just not going to happen. These guys have much more raw, much more grit. Again, I kind of hear some of that Aerosmith vibe going on in here, that swagger that Steven Tyler had, and that kind of rasp that he had in his voice. But a lot of these songs ended up getting re-recorded on the next album, but not all of them. But She's a Rocker, Can't Take My Eyes Off You, You Can't Take Me, Put a Spell on You, Get Off, Tokyo, On Your Back, Let Me, Oh Ruby, which was the song that kind of put him on the map, not only here, but when it came out on Atlantic Records, that was the first single, and then Undercover. Hey, my undercover lover. Every song is great on this record. Highly recommended if you can find a copy. It has been reissued with a different cover on CD. Yeah, and then the other thing is, again, there's a bit of a connection here. I was a huge fan of this band. My roommate was friends with Henrik, which is how I discovered the band. He's the one who bought me my first cassette copy of this album. Brought it back from Pennsylvania with him during a break in my college days. We were, we're dorm roommates, and I ended up getting to know Ostrich over the years and talked to him on the phone every once in a while. Talked to him on the phone just a few months before he passed away. He sent me a really nice letter, which I still have today. And sent me a copy of the last album he put out before he passed away, and the note just said something. Thanks for talking. But we had this really great talk just about music and spirituality and all these different things. It was really cool to talk to him, and then to find out not long after that he passed away was just kind of devastating. So again, this kind of plays an emotional role in my life as well. So there you go. Dirty Looks, In Your Face, long video, lots of records shown. Hope you appreciated it. Thanks for watching. Leave a comment below, and I will try to get back to you as quickly as I can. God bless. Stay strong.